千里之行，始于足下。A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. 道德经 Chapter 28. From our previous discussions, you recall that we started out looking at the structure of 28 and were able to uncover a lot just by looking at the Chinese characters. So I'll skip past the details and get right to the conclusion. So when you look at the highlighted text, you see a lot of repetition. You see the three main sections. So we were able to get to the very last part. The very last line, we finished our discussion of everything, and I was able to tell a couple of stories to illustrate the principles, which I enjoyed very much, and I hope you did as well. So all that's really left is to summarize and conclude this entire chapter. So in order to do that, I want to focus everyone's attention on three things, three sections with 3 points that are repeated in each section. The first one is going to be lines 1, 6, and 11, where you have the reiteration of knowing something and then holding on to something else. As we talked about last time, the knowing the something is always the yang principle. That is the external, the obvious, the high profile, the overt. But then as you do that, as you know the yang principle, we should also hold to the yin principle. That is the contemplative, the relaxed, the thoughtful, the mental aspects, the hidden aspects, the aspects that are not so visible to the external world. So know the yang, hold to the yin is the way that I summarize those 3 lines. Then another important part is line 4, line 9, and line 14. These all talk about the same thing, which you can see in the first 2 characters being repeated, the eternal virtue. So knowing the yang, holding on to the yin, and there's specific examples for doing that, that is how you cultivate the Tao. That is how you cultivate the virtue within yourself. Then, lastly, what the big arrows are, line 5, line 10, and line 15, would be the end result, would be what you can expect as you continue on your path of cultivation, accumulating virtues, practicing the Tao, putting everything, applying all the principles into real life. So I have 3 slides to bring everything together with a whole bunch of examples, and then we will get into the paraphrase. So let's tackle the first one, the first part of it that appears in all 3 sections. Know the yang principle, embrace the yin. Just by talking about it like that, it can be rather abstract. So it may be difficult to understand what do you mean by knowing the yang and embracing the yin. Is it a contradiction? Is this a paradox in the Tao? No. usually paradox in the Tao are seemingly paradox only because the translator is unclear as the original meaning. So when the translator inadvertently comes up with something that is contradictory, the easy way out, the excuse is to say that, well, this whole ancient Chinese culture thing is so inscrutable, is so mysterious that this is just a paradox. So 9 times out of 10, no, it's not a paradox. It's just misunderstanding or the lack of comprehension on the part of the author. So let me emphasize that with this bullet point here. The two are not contradictions. They are essential halves of the whole. Each is complete without the other. Each is incomplete without the other. They both make the whole complete. What do I mean by the whole? Well, the yin and yang symbol, which I think is familiar to all of us. So you need both. You have to have the entire symbol and not just lean on one side or the other. So let me offer some ways to easily remember this concept. Know the yang, embrace the yin. One, the peaceful warrior. So on the face of it, this term may also seem like a contradiction because isn't war the opposite of peace? Well, in the Tao, the peaceful warrior is the ultimate warrior. The peaceful warrior has a singular goal, and that is to maintain, promote, protect the peace. So the goal of the warrior is to be a person of peace rather than a person who wages war. So the peaceful warrior is actually not a contradiction, but the highest ideal in the craft, in the art and craft of being a warrior. The ultimate warrior is the person who can best realize that ideal, a warrior who brings about peace, who would be the most accomplished warrior if he or she never has to use the instruments, the weapons of warfare. So that's one way to remember the peaceful warrior. Now, by saying the peaceful warrior, we can also extrapolate from there and then see a whole bunch of other possibilities that we have also seen in real life. And these other examples make this concept a lot clearer. Take a look at number 2, the unsung hero. So the hero in this case would be someone who has done something good, something beneficial, something that is helpful to other people, perhaps saving lives, perhaps coming to the aid of others. That person is a hero. And yet, that person may not want the fame, notoriety, whatever, associated with having done a heroic deed. And therefore, the true hero, the highest ideal of the hero, would be the one that prefers to remain unknown. And therefore, other people may not even realize that this hero has done certain things or tied that the deed, the heroic deed, to a specific individual. Someone perhaps after doing the heroic deed disappears into the woodwork. So that is the unsung hero. And if you think about it, many hardworking people in the world today, those who are struggling to make ends meet, raising a family, raising kids with good values, well, they are the unsung heroes as well. They combine the two aspects of the yin and yang symbol. They do things that are beneficial for their family, for their kids, but also for society, because those kids grow up to become functioning adults in that society. But they embrace the yin. they don't really have to be known or decorated or honored for being great parents. They just are. They just do it because they ought to do it. They just do it because it's the right thing to do. So that's the Tao. So great parents are the unsung heroes as well. And of course, when we talk about helping people, being of assistance to other people, a related term to that would be the unknown Samaritan. So you've reached out to do a good deed, you've been helpful to someone. There doesn't have to be like a parent-child relationship, it could be a total stranger. So you are the good Samaritan, and yet you don't stick around for the fanfare, the celebration, the singling out of your good deed for praise. The Tao cultivator, for the Tao cultivator, the highest ideal of being helpful is to be the unknown Samaritan. Now, the Tao cultivator is not hiding or sneaking around. It's just that he or she has no need to advertise a good deed. The important thing is to have it done and people get helped. Then, after that, he can simply go away without leaving a trace. Therefore, becomes the unknown Samaritan. So the action, the good deed itself, that is the yang aspects. So yang is action-oriented. Yang is about taking initiative, taking action. So the helpful act is the yang principle. The lack of ego, the lack of a need to be praised, that's the yin aspects. It's all about humility. So combine the two together, you have the yin and yang as a whole, and you have the unknown Samaritan. So far, I think you can see that someone who can embody these concepts and have the two halves of the whole together, the yang and the yin, that is actually someone that you would like to get to know. That is someone that you can learn from. That is someone that people will be naturally attracted to, because that person can serve as an example or mentor to so many other people. That's exactly what this chapter was all about. Lao Tzu talks about how when you have both, you become the watercourse way. We're jumping ahead a little bit, but it means that you are attracting all kinds of positive energies to you. Let's continue with the other three examples, and then we'll get to that part. So what else? Well, consider the humble achiever, someone who has accomplished great things, impressive things, amazing things, and yet that achiever is more humble than ever. This is also an ideal in the Tao, because the truth of the matter is, the more you achieve, the more you learn, the more you understand, the more you realize that there's so much more to accomplish, so much more to learn, so much more to do, so much more to understand. That realization makes you more humble than ever. So the highest achiever becomes also the humblest. This is a combination of this concept of knowing the yin, knowing the yang, and embracing the yin. Why is that? Well, because achievement itself, accomplishment, doing things, getting things done, that's part of the yang concept. So to know that is to achieve. And yet humility, as we mentioned, that's very much the yin. And it comes from increasing clarity about the world and your place in it. The more clearly you can see that, the more humble you become. Therefore, the two together is the whole concept, the yin and yang symbol. So what else? Consider this expression that I think many people have heard, the millionaire next door. So the idea is that someone who has achieved material success and we used to use the term millionaire for that. Nowadays, it should probably be revised to billionaire, and I don't know, decades from now, we probably will need to move to trillionaire as the real standard for wealth. But millionaire used to be the short term for that. Millionaire next door describes someone who seems very ordinary, someone who is not extravagant, not showy, not a show off, and yet has abundant financial resources available, has abundance and prosperity that he or she has earned. So you can see this also embodies the two concepts without contradiction. Someone who can enjoy that level of material abundance and prosperity and yet not be Mr. Big Spender or Ms. Big Spender, as the case may be. And then the last example, the invisible excellence. I sometimes call this the quiet excellence, or to excel quietly. So now that you've seen all these other examples, you can see exactly how this works. To excel is a natural byproduct of Tao cultivation, of practicing and applying the Tao in your life. That is very Yang, in accordance with the Yang principle. Action-oriented, you gotta do things, make things happen in order to improve and excel. And yet, there's no egocentric need to let that be known or to show off. And therefore, the excellence is quiet and can be even invisible. Probably a better term for the invisibility here is that this kind of excellence tends to be unnoticed or unnoticeable. There is a paradox here in that the more you tend to have no need to show everybody, the more you find that people figure it out anyway. They know that you don't have a need to brag, and yet, without any boasting from your part, they find out what you have done, they find out about your excellence, they find out about the abundance, prosperity, achievements, accomplishments, the helpful assistance you render to other people, heroic deeds that you have done, the protection of peace. So people figure it out and you become known without having to advertise. So all of these together is this initial concept of knowing the Yang, embracing the Yin. As you can see, there's a depth and quality here that is simply missing from most translations and commentary about the Tao Te Ching. So one last one before we leave this particular slide behind. When you extrapolate from this, you can see all kinds of other examples, and I can see a very good example here from my friend Nick from Texas, who's asking about a business owner who gives all the credit to the employees. Yes, let's extrapolate even further from that and say a leader, the team lead, the lead who gives all the credit to the team. So that would also be very much in accordance with the Tao and this concept of knowing the Yang, embracing the Yin. Excellent. So I believe that we have accomplished quite a bit of clarity here. We understand this concept, and let's go ahead and drive home the point. We wield yin and yang principles, each at the appropriate time and at the right balance, to know how to be forward, how to advance. That's very yang, but also observe and understand the situation first before making your move. To observe and understand something, that's very much in accordance with the yin principle. So next we have in the original, we have know the white, hold to the black. So if you know the highly visible approach, the high profiled, easily visible approach, but at the same time, you also keep the more subtle methods close, ready to deploy, then you are much more likely to succeed or have a good outcome of what you are trying to accomplish. And lastly, from the original, we have know the honor, but hold to the humility. So the idea here is to know how to accomplish your goals. You are good at achieving, you excel, you improve yourself, but then you also hold on to the low-key ways of the humble practitioner. No showing off, no trying to get glory just for yourself. Instead, have other people enjoy the limelight. Give the highlight to others. That would be the way of the Tao. So that is what I call skillful use of yin and yang. It's incorporating both. Then the second part of those 3 sections that you saw, cultivation must be done not in isolation, but in connection with people. So in this particular chapter, Lao Tzu makes it clear that to cultivate the Tao is to not become a hermit, but to work within society, to interact with other people, to be with people, to be among people. So Lao Tzu expressed it in 3 different ways. To be the watercourse of the world, that means being a nexus point where the flow of human interactions come together. I've expressed this in different ways. I talked about how you attract good people to you, meaning that you attract positive energy from other people into your life. That's very powerful. So becoming the watercourse, keep in mind, the watercourse is the river in the center of the valley. It's where all the smaller streams and smaller rivers flow into. So be the watercourse way is to continuously keep moving, but incorporating all the good energies from everyone else that you come across. Bring everybody together. Powerful concept. Then we have Lao Tzu saying that you become the standard, what he calls standard, which means example of the world. And that is, as a Tao cultivator, you'll be teaching and leading by example, by your actions, not by telling people what to do. So you yourself become a template for others to follow. This means being very stringent with yourself in following the ways of the Tao, while being very liberal and very forgiving with other people. So it may seem a little bit odd, but that's exactly what the self-discipline of the Tao means, that you are hard on yourself, but easy going with everyone else. That is how you become this impeccable example for others. A good parent, as I mentioned, at the workplace, you become that impeccable professional, that you do everything right so that you can serve as an example for others. And lastly, we have Lao Tzu saying that when you are able to bring together the yin and yang in the way that we described in the last slide, you become the valley of the world. So that initially can be difficult to understand as well. Be like the valley, meaning the valley is a place where all the living things are nurtured and protected. When you are like the valley, you are wide open like the valley, and you are nurturing to all, meaning everyone within your circle. And you are open and expansive, meaning that you are accepting of diverse opinions and different levels of attainment. This last part is actually important. Different levels of attainment. I specifically want to highlight that you will come across many people who don't really know the first thing about the Tao, who really have messed up their lives because they don't follow the Tao either intuitively or by knowledge that they have picked up. They will sometimes behave in a way that most people will feel is very annoying, very negative. If you are truly the valley, you will be able to look upon such people with a high degree of tolerance. You don't need to be around to continuously be annoyed by them, but you can treat them equitably, you can treat them well, and not look upon them with disdain as other people may. So that's all about being the valley, to be nurturing as well as accepting. So the last part of the message from Lao Tzu, I think we're pretty clear on this now. Lao Tzu is describing the benefit of practicing yin and yang, and then become this, to be quite frank, becoming this magnetically attractive, charismatic individual. And that charisma comes by naturally. It is just the natural side effect of your ability to practice and hold on to the Tao. So let's talk about what happens when virtues have become completely natural. You are constantly virtuous. You don't need to remind yourself to be virtuous. And you are just a step away from the Tao, the level of the Tao. So Lao Tzu talks about eternal virtue, 常德, the two repeating characters that you see here, repeated 3 times. Eternal virtue, and he talks about it in 3 different ways. You can't lose them because they are a part of you. You can no more lose your natural virtues than you can lose something else that's natural about you. For instance, your height, your eye color, your natural personality. You cannot lose that because it's a part of you. Secondly, Lao Tzu talks about how there's no deviation. This is going back to what I was just talking about, where Tao cultivators are really hard on themselves but easy with others. That discipline is what ensures that the Tao cultivator will never deviate from the path of the Tao. So constant virtue means that it's always there. There's no taking a break from being virtuous. There's no straying from the path, allowing yourself some vice, and then returning back to the path. When you have constant virtue, it's natural for you to be virtuous, and therefore there's no deviation from it. Lastly, constant virtue shall be sufficient. So this is where you realize that you've always been self-sufficient. So this is where I address you in what I hope is very serious fashion about seeking gurus or deities. I want to go back to the words of Huinen, the 6th patriarch, and point out that you've always had everything you need. You don't need guidance from gurus. You don't need to pray to deities for divine guidance. Tao cultivators, when they pray, recognize that they are communicating, they are in communion with their own divine highest selves, not an external deity, an external entity who passes judgment over you. So in life, friends, allies, teachers, classmates, they can point things out for you. They can point to certain things for your attention. But you know, and I know, that at the end of the day, it's still all left up to you. You've got to make the call. You have to make the determination. You have to figure out which way, which path to follow. You have to have faith in yourself that you have everything you need to make a good decision at every fork in the road. And to have that realization, that's much of what Tao cultivation is all about, is to uncover the natural ability you've always had. And it's still there. You don't really need me to tell you these things. I can act as a reminder. I can point things out. But at the end of the day, it's really all up to you. Ultimately, you're in charge. You're sovereign. So that's it for the recap or the review. We are now ready for the paraphrase of 28. Our purpose, as always, is to demonstrate complete understanding by expressing the original meaning with modern language in our own words. So let's start with section 1. This is what we were just talking about, where this is one of the 3 sections that expresses the idea of how knowing the yang, holding to the yin, can bring about very good things in your life and change you as an individual. So here's how I would paraphrase. The key in Tao cultivation is to know the yang principle while holding on to the yin principle. When you balance the two, you become a central nexus of human interactions in society, attracting good people to you. The virtues you cultivate become a natural part of you as you return to your original state of purity and maximum potential. So if you have followed this entire chapter with me, you know that I'm talking about the state of the infant when I speak of your original state of purity and maximum potential. Let's move on to the second section. This is a reiteration of the same concept, which, unless explained, can be really abstract. So the way that we would express the second part is with the following paraphrase. Similarly, you should know the external, highly visible approach to success while holding on to the internal lessons extracted from past experience. When you are able to do this, you become an example for others to emulate. The virtues you cultivate do not deviate from the Tao as you return to the primal state of ultimate power. And again, if you follow the discussion, you know the primal state of ultimate power is Wu Ji. So now I think we're ready for the third section. It's about knowing the honor, holding on to the humility, and here's how I would paraphrase. Cultivating the Tao this way will naturally bring about excellence and achievements. But as you receive recognition for your work, you must also hold on to the practice of humility. When you are able to do this, you become like a valley that is open and nurturing to all. You feel a sense of contentment as you return to the simplicity of plain wood. Plain wood, as you may recall from our previous discussion, is a good metaphor for that state of maximum potential, maximum possibilities at the beginning. In the Tao, it means that you can, no matter what stage of life you are currently in, you can always let go, simplify, and return to that original state of maximum potentiality. In other words, you can reinvent yourself. That brings us to the very last section. Let's get to it. Here's the paraphrase. In understanding the above, the sages can see everyone as a unique potentiality that can be brought together in the spirit of harmony. This is the Tao of leadership, bringing out the best from each individual so we can contribute and help one another and continue down the path together. So I hope you can see that our meeting week after week is a manifestation of the Tao principle that this particular chapter is addressing. In the very last section here, you see Lao Tzu moving to the level of talking about people working together, coming together, from the previous 3 sections, which is about what you can do to get to that point. The Tao of leadership is both about leading and following. It's about people coming together in that spirit of harmony. There's nothing that this team working in harmony cannot accomplish. We magnify each other's abilities and power and excellence many times when we do that, when we continue down the path together. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Let us travel safely. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.